love themselves and their faces. I'm delighted to welcome John Murray to the Junior Business Studio. Hiya, John.
Hey, Alec, how are you?
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great introduction. I could have given that myself, but it's so true about the work that you do. And I think our audience will be fascinated because you have such a different take on photography and what it's all about. Can I just start, though, by taking you back to your last year in school and what was going through your mind? I mean, was photography that place or was something else happening?
No, definitely not photography. I did get offered, actually, this has just come into my head. My dad worked in RTE and had a hook up with Ballyfermot College to do a lot of TV work. And I had the opportunity to go and study to be a cameraman and do film production and video production, but I didn't. I was like, no, I'm not following him down that route. That's not for me. I'm far too uncreative for that. And I think, leaving cert, I don't think I had any designs on what I wanted to do at that stage. I was working in Tesco's and I was having fun with my friends and going out and, that was it really. It was, underage nightclubs at the weekend. And that was my whole life, I don't think I had any designs on what I wanted to do. I had a very uncomfortable school career. And I think by 6th year, I was just fed up with it and wanted to be a man. But yeah, no, it's I don't think I had any designs on what I wanted to do, and I was very lost.
All right. So okay, you got out of school. So what did you do with yourself then?
I remember doing a course. I was thinking IT is the way forward. So I went and I did computer sciences course very briefly. And then I got offered a chance to go on a scholarship program to the States to study finance. It was a part of the International Fund for Ireland, which was a cross-border thing. So it was kids from the north and kids from the south.
Sure.
And between NCI, the New England College of Finance, in Boston, we got to study finance. So that was, my college.
So you had a real grow for finance.
Oh yeah. No. It was just the IFSC had opened in the city centre. It was all the Dublin Docklands Development Authority were very involved in it, and inner city kind of groups and stuff like that were all very, very involved. It gave a lot of opportunities to kids from the area, and I got offered it and didn't say no, and I went, and it was great fun. The chance to go to Boston and study finance was a great idea at the time, and I did. I remember sitting in Tremont Street in JP Morgan looking out the window at the dudes making fried dough right outside Boston Common and squirrels climbing the trees. And that was all I had interest in. I was just, this is not for me. This office life is not for me. Now, I don't know if that was just the American culture of work where everything's about work. Or if I had interned and stuff here and had the social life of a normal kind of Irish teen or Irish kind of person in their early 20s, I don't know if I would have maybe stayed in that career or had a different experience, but the experience I had is the experience I had. And when I came home, then I think I had a job in Buskers in Temple Bar within about an hour.
So you took this finance knowledge to the pub world.
Yeah, because you need to count when you're putting money in the till. I was able to do really fast, big maths, but at Temple Bar prices as well. But no, I just had no interest, and there was something in me that was bursting to have a bigger experience, I think, and not sit in a cubicle somewhere staring at walls. And I've always been a people person. I've always been quite social. I've always kind of loved having people around me, and 60 bar in Temple Bar is definitely having people around you. And I enjoyed that experience. I was there for a couple of years, and I moved around different pubs and stuff like that, and it was really good fun. But that whole office life, finance life really didn't suit my transient soul.
All right. So, okay, the pub life, I mean, you're young enough to enjoy it and enjoy all the side benefits that go with all of that. So tell us, you obviously weren't going to stay in that world all of your life. So where were you going to shift on to next?
I think I moved from there. I'd volunteered with St. John Ambulance for a long time.
All right.
My camera just went off and we'll come back on soon. But yeah, I'd volunteered with them for a while, and I think that was a natural progression through there, the same as a lot of other members, to apply for things like the ambulance service or Dublin Fire Brigade, or to go and train as a nurse or a doctor and stuff like that. And the Dublin Fire Brigade thing was a massive thing for me. So that's where I chased my intentions, and I ended up on a recruitment panel for the Fire Brigade. And I ended up, I trained as a medic as well, so an EMT or paramedic, and I went back to the States again in 2006. There was myself and a gang of other lads that had these wild intentions of going off, earning 120 grand or 150 grand a year tax-free in Saudi Arabia or Dubai, and then coming back, buying an apartment or a house. We were still in our early 20s. So we did that, went off to the States and did that, and then come back here. And we didn't go to Dubai or Saudi Arabia because we all had girlfriends, and that was just not going to happen. So we ended up not doing it and not going away. And I think everybody that was there has ended up in a career, or they ended up in a career in either Dublin Fire Brigade or the National Ambulance Service. So mine, I ended up in Dublin Fire Brigade, and some of the other lads were all National Ambulance Service or in different careers. One lad even went to Canada, and he ended up with the Mounties, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for a while, and he's back in Ireland now, I think.
Yeah. So tell us about the Fire Brigade. How did you find that experience? I mean, it's not for everybody.
I loved it. I loved working. It was a great experience. You know, it's a great job. It's very connected again, this whole kind of thing of being surrounded by people. But yeah, I did love it. And even after coming out of the Fire Brigade, you know, I don't know, did I miss it? I think I missed it at the start, and then realized that, you know, I don't miss it anymore. It's like I spend my life making people laugh now instead of having to deal with this distress.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of distress, and I'm sure it must have sort of some impact even on your off time.
Yeah, well, I remember being at a lecture with Adrian O'Grady. He was the head of the CISM program. It's a critical incident stress management program. And when we were in the training center, I remember him coming in and doing a talk, and he was doing a talk on stress. So there's eustress, which is good stress, and then distress is the bad stress. I remember him talking about all of that, but stuff sits with you. There'll be places in Dublin, or I'll hear things, or I'll be talking to somebody about something, and you know, you will remember certain things. I can't go past St. Anne's Park without thinking about a call that happened I was in the control room in Tower Street, and I took a call from St. Anne's Park one night. Quite a distressing call, but I can't drive past that, which is unfortunate considering I go to Higgins Butchers every week for buying meat. So every time I go past that park, I think of the conversation that I had with a man on the phone, and the stress that he was going through. So
wow,
that was probably 2015 or 2016. Wow. So I still remember it, and it's 5 years later, nearly 6 years later.
If you're just joining us now, I'm delighted to be interviewing my guest, who's an award-winning photographer, John Murray, and we're just going through the early part of his life and about to move on from there. So tell us, okay, the Fire Brigade service, you were going to move on. You had other interests, and the time off made that available to you.
Yeah, to be honest, an ex-girlfriend bought me a camera about 2 weeks before we broke up, because she bought me tickets for a show, and then the show cancelled, and when the guy cancelled the show, she got a refund and felt really bad, and that my birthday present had then cancelled, and she got her money back, and she bought me a camera, and it sat in a drawer for a while. I didn't really play with it. I never used it because we'd broken up, and it just sat there. But I had always played with her camera and stuff like that when we were going out. And eventually a neighbor of mine, I met him on the street, and he was taking photographs. He's a really, really good event photographer, shoots a lot of concerts and stuff. And he said, bring your camera out and I'll show you some tricks. And I worked 7 days and 7 nights a week, or 7 days and 7 nights a month. So I had a lot of daytimes off, and the hobby kind of grew out of that. And as it developed, I kind of got better, and I kept being volunteered to photograph people and kids and pets and all that sort of stuff, even though I was generally quite nervous taking photographs of people, because people used to tell me they looked fat and old and ugly in photographs. And I felt that I had caused that kind of that panic, or I had caused that distress. And yeah, developed and developed and developed. And eventually I ended up shooting magazine work, and I ended up photographing stuff for the Sunday World magazine and things for Debenhams and Giacomo and other people. And it ended up then as a business.
Right.
And then it ended up as everything it is now. You know, it was like it developed. In 2014, I trained with Peter Hurley. He's the top headshot photographer in the world. And when I trained with Peter, my focus changed. The way I photograph people changed. The way I look at people changed. And the way I relate to people on the opposite side of the camera is completely different now than it was then. And the whole thing kind of flipped on its head. And now, then I made the decision, actually, I'm going to niche down and I'm going to focus on headshots, and I'm only going to focus on headshots. And
right.
People told me I was crazy, that I'd make no money and I wouldn't be able to live if I only focused on headshots, because there's not a market for headshots and just headshots on their own. And I refused to listen to them. I just went, no, this is what I want to do. I want to stand 6 feet in front of somebody and I want to torment the heart and soul out of them, and I want to get those reactions. And I want to see them as in whatever's going on the inside and how they were on the outside. And then through that, my interest in the human sciences and stuff like that all came forward. And, you know, training as a medic, all of that stuff and understanding that stuff all came out as well, because it's understanding how people are on the inside, physically what's happening, you know, physiologically what's happening, psychologically what's happening. And then I started to do courses, cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness training, neurolinguistic programming, all of these things, to mix them together. To get a bigger picture of whatever was going on inside them and how they're wearing on the outside. And here we are.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting transition. I mean, for most people, when you tend to think of photography, it's all nice stuff for nice people wearing nice clothes in nice places. And I know you got caught up in that world in the earlier days of photography, because that's where you start learning the craft. But that soured fairly quickly for you.
Yeah. I sacked all of my clients in 2017, all of them. I was like, I'm not dealing with you anymore. I can't. The industry, the beauty industry and that sort of industry is, and the fashion industry, there are a lot of genuine people and there's a lot of kind of genuine sides to that, but there's still a lot of disingenuousness in the industry. There's a lot of air kisses and false promises, I like to say. But there was a lot of people that I was dealing with that didn't follow through on what they said that they would. And I think I was in a position of transition as well from kind of the fire brigade thing. And I was under a lot of stress anyway. And I just said, you know what, I can't be dealing with this anymore. Like, I was going through a lot of stuff at the time and I was like, this is just not for me. It's not. And that same week I was in LinkedIn. I had a row with a client over money.
Don't we all at some stage?
Basically, it was to go to India and photograph acid attack victims. And the person that was asked me to go for free, even though they had a couple of businesses on the outside and they didn't really need to worry too much about finance. I would have had to pay to go to India for a month and bring an assistant and bring all of my gear and everything, all the other costs incurred, and then send all those images to a retoucher or to an editing house to have them edited, to get them back, to donate them to somebody else.
Wow.
And that just didn't sit well with me. And I just said, you know what, that's the end of it, no more. And that same week I was in LinkedIn and I was doing a talk for a guy named Paul Daly and his team, and basically all of the other teams that he had invited down to the room. He said, look, can I bring extra people into the room just to see the talk? And I said, yeah. I was photographing maybe 25 people for him that day.
Sure.
And there was, at this stage, I think there was maybe 100 people in the room, maybe more. And the room was packed full of people who were all sitting there fully engaged in what I was talking about, fully listening, asking questions and getting value from it. Like, I mean, psychological value, not LinkedIn paying and getting something decent. You know, the people in the room were actually taking something from it.
They were engaged. And what was the topic you were talking about?
That talk was called Am I Ugly? And it talks about, at that point, there was 9.34 million YouTube videos of people asking the world, are they ugly?
Wow.
Tens of thousands of people every month are Googling it. It's up on Facebook. People are asking the question because we don't know what we look like. And there's a whole thing behind that, this self-acceptance gap. And one of the videos that's on YouTube is this little girl asking, is she ugly? And trolls went to town on her. And I kind of showed this and said, look, am I ugly? And I talk about my face and my experience. And I think that's one of the things the talk was about. Now, it's not all depressing, kind of bounces up and down.
I know that. Well, I know you.
Yeah. It's there's a little bit of madness in it, but everybody in the room seemed fully engaged, and then they start questioning themselves and their relationships with themselves. And that's the whole idea behind these talks, is to make people understand that you don't know what you look like. There's just no way you know what you look like. You have 16,384 different musculature variations in your face, and you do 35 facial expressions every day, and 17 of them are smiles. And all you see is the weird version of yourself in photographs that has a weird thing on your face you don't like, or the version of yourself in the mirror. And both of those things are wrong. So yeah, I talk about the technology and the failures in the technology and the difference between what we see and the camera sees, and all of this stuff is all evidence-based. And
sure,
that's what's in the talks, I suppose. And that's what was in that talk, and it left people in the room asking a lot of questions. Even one guy, Arian, I remember his name is, he asked me a question about, can you tell where somebody's from based on their face? I was like, well, yeah, because linguistics changes the jaw, and it changes the way that our faces move. And a lot of this stuff actually made a lot more sense once I met Joseph McGuire, the profiler that we both know. But you can tell where somebody's from based on their face shapes. Now, we're not talking about, obviously there's immigration and migration, and there's differentials there, but based on the profile of somebody, you can tell where they're from, or you can tell where their genetics are from.
Sure.
Even if they are, they might be from Cork and have a lovely Cork accent, and have the facial profile of somebody from China, or somebody from Nigeria, or somebody from Poland. The accent might not match what is here, but
yes, of course, yeah,
what they're wearing. But you can tell where the genetic lineage is from and stuff like that based on the shapes. And now there's a lot of mixes and crossovers and stuff like that, but that's a whole different area. But yeah, I remember having that conversation with him and being fully engaged, and him being fully engaged in what we were talking about, and other people in the room start popping up with questions. And I hadn't had that serious level of engagement with a crowd before. I'd spoken at things before, but never like that. And it made me realize that people genuinely want to know about themselves, and they want to know how they're interacting with themselves and the rest of the world. And even though they know it, I think they just want clarity on it. And to take that "am I ugly" thing away. So yeah, that was one massive turning point. And it was that same week then that I had sacked all my other clients, and I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to focus on. And then I'm going to go and study more about this, and I'm going to learn as much as I can, and I'm going to inject all of that together, and then mix behavioral sciences and human sciences together with photography. And I'm going to do it for the purpose of making people happy and make them like themselves.
If you're just joining us now, I'm with the award-winning photographer John Murray. I'm actually having a very interesting conversation, particularly around facial expressions. John particularly focuses on the face. And I'd like to follow that up. I mean, we were just talking about that whole LinkedIn meeting, which was a turning point, I think, as much in your own life as it was for the audience there. And then you follow that up. So tell us more about all of this. We all seem to be looking for the bad things in ourselves. What's that all about? Why do we not see the good?
Physically, right? So I talk about this as the gap of self-acceptance. So the gap between how we see ourselves and what we think the rest of the world sees, and the gap between who we believe we are as opposed to who we believe the rest of the world expects us to be. The easy way to look at this and talk straight away would be about the physicality, right? But look, if you grow up in Docky or Killiney, Portmarnock or Malahide or something like that, chances are you're going to follow into the roots of the people that came before you. So if they're all educated, college educated, doctors, solicitors, barristers, chances are you're going to follow into academia. You're going to follow that route because it's what laid out before you. And that's what you think is expected of you. If you grow up, I grew up in the city centre in Pearse Street, or you could grow up in Ballymun, or you could grow up in Finglas, or you could grow up anywhere else. The same kind of thing applies, that if everybody works in Tesco's, or they're all builders, or they're taxi drivers, or they've lived their life on social benefits, well, then that's what's laid out before you, and it's the easy route to follow. And we don't want to do anything different, because genetically we're told not to stand out from the herd because it isolates us and makes us vulnerable. So we don't. We follow what we see. If everybody is a farmer, well, then chances are you're going to follow into farming. But that whole thing that's the gap between who we believe we are and who we believe everybody else expects us to be. We want to be like them so that we don't stand out and then we don't get ourselves into trouble. But that's wrong, and it's the same. It's a comparison is the thief of joy, is something Teddy Roosevelt said, and it's not just about physicality. It's about doing something. We should be doing things that make us enrich us and make us happy, not because it suits everybody else for us to do it. Sure. And I think the same with the physical side of it. So the gap between what we think we look like and what we think everybody else is seeing is completely different. Because when you see yourself in the mirror, you wholeheartedly believe you look like that because based on the evidence, that's what you look like because you see it every day. But we've had eyeballs for 90 million years and we've only had cameras for 200 years and we've only had the glass-based mirror for 180 years. So, the technology in your head is not used to seeing yourself. The only way you should be seeing yourself is in a rippled puddle outside a cave. So when you see yourself in the mirror, you wholeheartedly believe you look like that because you see it every day and the evidence says that's what you look like. And then when you see a photograph of yourself, it's the wrong way around. And your brain says, what's wrong with that? Why do I not look like me? And you pick one thing in your face you don't like, and it's the same thing in every photograph, and it's always there. And you blame that on making you feel uncomfortable, but it's not that. It's the fact that empathy is kicking in. Because about 2 million years ago, we got the facility for empathy. So we have cells in our brain called mirror receptors that make us copy exactly what we see in other people. If they're happy, we're happy with them. If they're sad, we're sad with them. And when you see a photograph of a person on a screen or you see a photograph of a person on print, your brain only understands a series of shapes. So that is a person. And as far as your brain is concerned, because 90 million years of evolution tells us that this series of shapes that we see here is an actual person. So I need to respond to that person in the same way that they are activating with me or they're interacting with me. So if they're happy, we're happy with them. It's a two-dimensional flat photograph. It's frozen in time, but your brain believes that's an actual person standing in front of you. So when they're happy, you're happy with them. If they're sad, you're sad with them. And if they're uncomfortable, like you are in photographs, then you are uncomfortable with them. So what you're actually doing is you're empathizing with the person in the photograph who is seriously uncomfortable having their photograph taken. Therefore, you feel uncomfortable. And that's the actual science of it. So what I do is I break the barriers of that. I break that down and I say, okay, do whatever you think you should do. And then we're going to do some other stuff. Alec, you've been in the studio. You know how this works.
I've been a victim, John, yeah.
You've been one of my many victims. And then it's a case of coming out and looking at the evidence and saying, okay, this is what you think you should be doing. This is wrong. But in the interim, after that first image, we've reposed it and stuff to account for the failures in the technology. So the camera only seen two-dimensionally. So we're making sure that we don't see many, many, many chins on somebody who doesn't have many, many chins. So what we're doing is we're repositioning you for the failures of the technology to account for that. Understanding the length of the lens, the zoom length of the lens, like the fact that we have all these lights added in, and we're driving faces forward and we're doing different things and making you stand in weird positions that actually look okay on camera. And then we come back out and we look at it again and we say, okay, well, this is the difference. When we lift our posture, we start releasing like good hormones into our body and into our system. What we're doing is we're communicating differently. So we start looking at body language and non-verbals and how they tie together with the images. And then all of a sudden, everything starts to make sense and people start laughing and other stuff starts happening in the studio or wherever I'm doing these talks. And the evidence shows you that you didn't know what you look like, and then when people start seeing what they actually look like, there's a huge difference. Wait, hold on. Is that really me? Yeah, of course it's you. I don't have somebody, I don't have a dwarf in the studio who just is better looking than you, but slightly shorter. We're taking photographs and I take these images and they go from the camera through a magic cable to a retoucher who then edits them and then they loop back around and onto the screen within 5 seconds. That doesn't happen. It is you, and it's the evidence is new, and it's sometimes shocking. And I have a blog post on my website for a reason that says I make people cry for a living, and I love it. But that is important, and it's important for people to actually get to see what they look like, and to break down those barriers of I don't know what I look like, or I think I do, and it's wrong. For
people who are interested in more of this, where can they get details of it, John?
my website, johnmurrayheadshots.com. And all of my social links are all there. It's probably the easiest place to go. I'd love to give a big long list of that stuff, but it's just easier to just go to the website and to click in there.
Find it there. In the minute and a half we've got left, have you a message for the audience out there?
Yeah. Look, it is what it is. Your face is a mosaic of all the people who came before you. And, you know, everything you have is on loan. You know, sometimes you look at yourself and you say, I don't like my ears or my nose, or I don't like my lips or whatever. You never saw a problem with them when they were kissing you goodnight when you were a child, you know, and you're not going to see problems with those in your kids or your grandkids or your nieces and nephews. And God help anybody who said that your kids are ugly, you know, because you don't believe that, and you don't believe that those features are wrong on anybody else. My whole message is always, and especially winding up any talks I do, is how you walk in the skin you wear is your decision. Why not embrace it? Because what other choice do you have?